Welcome to April 10th, 7 o'clock, Duluth Conservative. I'm Shawn.
I'm Dave.
That's Dave. We're going to power through this episode because I have been on my back for a couple of days. I've got my honey. Hopefully that'll go in my throat if I start to cough uncontrollably. But we're going to go through this show, and today what we're going to talk about is in Duluth news. We're going to hit on our representatives attending some rallies and getting involved in federal business instead of working for us. Minnesota bills, with our Duluth representatives working hard to spend even more of our money. Minnesota news, possibility of dissolving the Met Council, which would be fantastic. And House Republicans voting for proof of citizenship to vote, which would be fantastic as well. Section on Tim Walz. He came back to Minnesota and he got booed and heckled by the veterans. And I'm wondering if he should maybe stay in the states that he's been going to other than Minnesota. And pointing out that even his son mocks him, which is kind of funny. And some national news, Dubai porta parties. And I found out about these, so you have to know about them too. They're really disgusting, but we'll talk about them. 170 lawsuits against the federal government, talking about what a constitutional crisis looks like. And then we'll do some health and fitness at the very end. So let's get going, shall we?
Yes, absolutely.
And before we begin on the Duluth stuff, I want to talk about a couple of points that we're going to come back to a couple of times. One is the manipulation of when talking about subjects. For example, the Proctor Journal. I was just pointed out this out to me a couple of days ago, but they have a little thing on their site where they just do a poll, and the poll is usually like, what's your favorite kind of strawberry jam or something like that, something silly. This last one was, do you feel it's all right for the U.S. to deport illegal immigrants without legal due process and against USA rule of law? Now, I was okay with the question up to, do you feel it's all right for the U.S. to deport illegal immigrants? When you're tacking on the without legal due process and against USA's rule of law, you're really jumping in and making a very interesting opinion on what is the rule of law in the United States, keeping a law that the Illegal Immigration Act or that act that Trump induced is law. And it was in the 1700s, but so is our Constitution. So it's an interesting thing. I wrote to the Proctor Journal to talk about it. He thanked me for pointing it out, but then he pointed out that law is, a couple hundred years old. I didn't go into it after that because my point wasn't to get into a fight. Also, using terms like you're anti-immigration instead of anti-illegal immigration, or you're anti-vaccination as opposed to anti-mRNA shots. That one really bothers me because when you say you don't want to take the COVID shot, people just accuse you right now of being anti-vaccination. A vaccination, as it was defined up until a couple of years ago, was taking dead or very inactive cells of a disease, injecting them into your body so you could develop immunity but not contract that disease. That's all changed with mRNA shots. That's a completely different beast. And to talk about it as being anti-vaccination when you just don't want that kind of concoction in your body, I think it's one of the things that's pulling people apart and making them. I mean, some people, if they get it in their head that you don't like vaccinations at all, you don't think they work, they're just not going to listen to anything else you have to say. It's right. Until you get past the point where you're saying, I'm not talking about vaccinations. Now, when we were kids, I can't remember how many vaccinations we got, but I think it was in the low teens, maybe.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And now it's like 60 or 70. Yeah. There's got to be some thought to that, too. I mean, I understand measles, polio, but some of these other ones, you got to be kidding me. We survived as a human race for thousands of years, and all of a sudden we need 60, 70 vaccinations in our bodies when we're, 5 years old? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, and the Amish don't get any vaccinations, and they have a longer lifespan than we do. And they get less, they don't get cancer, they don't get other diseases that the main public does. So it has nothing to do with the vaccinations. It has to do with the way we're living. Right.
And kind of on the line of, the changing of words or saying things that aren't true. Can they stop with this gaslighting of, well, Trump supporters are now really admitting they were wrong and really regretting their vote. I don't know anybody that voted for Trump that's disliking what's happening. It's never a good thing when the stock market has a hit. But you know what? If that gets manufacturing jobs back into this country, and where people with a high school education can finally get a job, a good paying job, and not have to go to college, because college isn't the answer for everything.
Right.
And we have our stability of our products being produced here in the United States, so we don't have to worry about it being shipped. I mean, if you're a green activist, you should be hating the fact that things have to get shipped over from China. I mean, it's all worth it if that's what it's going to cause. And I remember when I went to Brazil, I told you this story a long time ago, because it was a while ago I was there. Went to a parking ramp, and there was a guy there. You're just sitting there with a notepad, took the money, and then you parked your car. He gave you a ticket. That's definitely a job here. Most of the time you're ever going to see it, it's going to be an arm, right? It's an automated arm. Or, now they never do that. You just have to, put in your stuff. But the guy had a job. It wasn't a great job. Nobody wants that job, but he had a job. So he could go someplace during the day and have some self-worth. And that's kind of what these manufacturing jobs are too. I mean, they don't have to be all grueling, and hopefully they're not all automated by robots, but you wouldn't want to do some of the repetitive stuff that's going to mind numb you, but there's got to be good jobs that you can do in those things, and doesn't require a college education to do it.
And that's where manufacturing comes in, and that's what Trump's trying to provide is the good, decent paying manufacturing positions.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and it'll be good. And I got one more thing to say before we start going to the news, is that I hear a lot about how conservatives are fascists and how we are dangerous. Well, let's talk about the Liberal Party here a little bit. And I have a challenge for people, because we're having all these liberal rallies lately. And we can talk a little bit about that in a little bit. It's part of the image you're going to see at the beginning of the show. But I challenge you, if you think your party's that good, I challenge you to wear a MAGA hat to one of those. Don't say anything. Don't try to start a fight. Come out, wear that. That's it. See what your reaction is. See what people say to you. See how they vilify you. And you can go to a conservative rally and wear something else that you think is going to set out the conservatives, like a Kamala Harris or Tim Walz or something. I bet you're not even close to accosted as you are going to be at a liberal rally. They're going to be vile to you. They could be physical with you. And you know it. You know it. That's the thing. You know this is happening as a liberal, and you just put your blinders on and act like it isn't happening. When I told somebody in my family that, hey, I think I'm going to buy a Tesla. Oh, don't do that. You're going to get scratched and firebombed. Yeah, that's the problem with your group. Your group is just violent. They don't think, they just destroy until they get their way. They're big children with tantrums. So sorry for the little rant at the beginning, but that's where I wanted to go at first.
Yeah, and I did hear a very highly acclaimed psychologist explain the similarities between a 2-year-old and the modern Democratic Party about how they cry and whine if they don't get their way, and if they're not properly listened to, appeased. Yeah, and he explained it top to bottom. They're no better than a 2-year-old.
Yeah. So
it was kind of interesting listening to him. And he started out a liberal, and once they found out he was conservative, they threw him out of Canada, basically. So
yeah, that's what's going to happen because they're a violent group. You don't agree with them, you have to leave. So. Let's jump into this thing, because like I said, this is going to be a short show before I start coughing a lot, which I'm fighting right now. Duluth, we have our representatives, and so the president of the United States has said he wants manufacturing. This is a general thing in Duluth. The president wants manufacturing in the United States. He's committed to doing this. He wants the tariffs to do that, to make sure that manufacturing comes back to the United States and we do things here. So if you're a representative for the state any state, I'm not talking about Minnesota, just in general, you can do one of two things. You can take the track that our current representatives taken and just try to fight everything that happens. Just that's your whole mode for the next 2 years at least. Fight, just oppose, oppress, get off it. Or you could say, how can I turn this into something that's going to be good for the people in my state? We've got a huge place where we can do manufacturing in Minnesota. We've got a lot of opportunities here. Our representatives aren't doing nothing for that. I just went to a rally on Saturday. It was for Keith Ellison, who I can't believe this guy gets elected. I say that about so many of them. And then Pete Johnson and Alicia Kozlowski. And the funny thing is Keith comes out, first thing he talks about is what Trump doesn't understand. And he's got this accent. I can't even understand where he's from. What Trump doesn't understand is that there's a difference between the federal government and the state government. He can't touch the state government. And then proceeded to go for 20 more minutes about how he, as a state representative, is trying to block everything that Trump is doing at the federal level. So I'm trying to figure out if he understands the difference that he talked about. And I don't know, did I talk to you very much about this meeting, Dave?
No, we haven't talked. That's why I was kind of interested to see about this failure of the town hall, when you know it's a fake town hall, when that's what Walz is doing. That's where all so what all the Democrats are doing is they're creating these fake town halls, and then when the Republicans don't create the same fake halls, then they go after them. But
they're trying to whip people up. That's all this is. They're trying to whip people up to get them agitated so that they can get elected or get their way or stop what they don't like. That's all it is. So I was in this thing, and Keith Ellison's up there talking, and he says, I put 19 TROs against the President of the United States, the temporary restraining orders. Okay, how many people know what a temporary restraining order is? And some people said yes. He goes, all right, let's go through it. I'm going to say the word temporary. Say temporary. Everybody responds. Well, lots of people respond temporary. And then he talks about what temporary means. And then he talks about restraining means. And they're responding. And he's asking questions, and people are literally responding to him as if they don't understand that this is a rhetorical question. He's not really asking your opinion about this. It reminded me, and I hope I don't offend people by this, going to a Catholic service where the priest says something and the people respond, but they're not thinking, right? They're not actively there. They're just saying what they've been told to say over and over again. That's what it reminded me. Creeped me out when I went to the Catholic service. It creeps me out at this too. This one woman goes up and she's like, "Hey, I am an immigrant to this country." And the people, especially the ones behind me, because they were thunderclapping right in my ear, couldn't hear anything. Why were you clapping because she's an immigrant? I don't understand okay, great, good for you. Okay, what's your point, right?
Do we need to call the tip line, or what do we need to do? Is that how it works?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you disappeared there for a second.
I clicked a button and I was gone. So anyway, it was an interesting thing. I heard Pete Johnson. Every time I hear Pete Johnson talk, I believe he is actually more liberal than Alicia is now. And I really don't get the sense that he knows actually what he's been proposing in legislature. He talked about how he's got so many aides and they just take care of business. I'm just wondering how much he has to do with the laws that are getting presented, which we'll talk about a couple of the bills here. But okay, rant done. So I talked about the forum, and then there's a bunch of protesters coming in. So I was downtown before the forum, and Elon Musk is showing where all this money is from. And there's a woman who talked about it where she said, I got paid $100 to go to a rally, but here's the conditions. I had to go to the rally. I had to, if I got carried a sign, I get more money. And at the end of it, I had to fill out a survey. And there were definite right or wrong answers. And if you answered wrong, you weren't going to get paid. So they're manipulating the scene they're manipulating the answers that people are giving. And, some of these people are just going there for a paycheck. I actually saw a protest at a Tesla dealership at the stroke of noon. They all just went away. We're like,
right.
pay time's done. We're leaving. And I saw Jefferson Line buses coming into downtown Duluth at that time, like more often than you should, like a couple in succession. And for the first time, I saw a DTA bus with people in it. That I couldn't believe. That was amazing.
Well, that was the whole part of the thing that I never could understand, is because I watched a ton of videos, a ton of people got paid, a ton of people were reading their pamphlets that they were given when they signed up for it.
Yeah.
What are they actually protesting?
Well,
I mean, what is Elon doing that's so bad that his companies need to be removed? He's picking out waste.
Right.
He's picking out, really hasn't seen too much fraud as far as I can tell, because no one's been arrested for it. But you would think that, Obama and Clinton, Hillary Clinton, when she ran, they're all talking about exactly the same things, reducing the size of federal government.
Yeah.
Yet now they're actually getting done. And why are they protesting? What are they protesting? Are they protesting because the price of things haven't gone down? I mean, of course not. Trump hasn't been in office for 90 days. And we spent the last 4 years of everything jumping in price day after day after day, and there was no protests. That was okay, but Trump, so what were they protesting? Do you know? Did you go into those rallies? Did you pick up anything? Or
yeah, they are protesting the fact that they are not in control. They put together this whole thing about how federal funding is getting cut, and they're just and this is two state Minnesota representatives, not federal representatives, two state local to Duluth and the Attorney General of Minnesota talking about how they're stopping the federal government from cutting federal employees and federal programs, which they have no business in. But I will point out something, that they have found a way to put themselves in it. And I'm going to show you how they did it in a little bit. So let's start talking about Minnesota bills, because it's going to segue into that. All right, we got HF 3125. This is going to cost us, let me just do this. This would cost $8.85 million. And this is the Kozlowski and Johnson. I think there's only two authors on this. And it's Duluth Community Engagement Center funding provided, bond issued, and money appropriated. Money to pre-design, design, construct, finish, and equip a community engagement center in the city of Duluth to serve people experiencing homelessness. This appropriation includes money for a commercial kitchen, warming center space, indoor and outdoor space for guests, health service facilities, classrooms and offices, and laundry and hygiene facilities. Wouldn't it be nice if our legislators tried to take care of us first before they started going down the line to the people that are homeless in the city? Because they're probably not city residents. They probably just migrated here for the special bonus they're going to get from Duluth.
Right.
But this is, again, they lament that they talk about this budget deficit. And then I heard Johnson on this thing on Sunday talking about it. He's like, well, we had to go to spending cuts because the Republicans seemed kind of united and said they weren't going to increase their spending. He seemed so dejected by it because he can't raise taxes yet again, keeping in mind they spent the $17 billion surplus and then raised another $10 billion in taxes and rose the government by 40%. That 40%, that's what you should be looking at cutting. We should be able to go well beyond where our deficit is and get back into a surplus based on the crap that you guys put in. Now, I don't blame Johnson for it personally because he wasn't in there, but Alicia was part of it, and she was one of the people that signed it on. Another $8.85 million for homeless people.
And didn't they just spend $250,000 to design a space, that same space?
Oh, that's something different.
Well, this is on a few shows we did, a couple 3 weeks ago or whatever, that he wanted another 250 just to design the thing,
Right.
and that was so. He called it a community center, so this might be the same thing.
Oh, I'm sure there's a different way to spend this money. Send it to a different group.
Yeah, and then our cost overrun, so it'll be 400 or 500 million.
Yeah. HF 3075. Subject of a birth record allowed to change, remove, or add sex indicator on birth records. Kozlowski is a co-author. So it's just making it legal to falsify a document.
Yeah.
So if you can change that, what good is that certificate anyway? Why can't you just change the date? I want to be younger. I feel like I'm not, 58 years old. I should be 38. So I'm going to change my birth certificate to say that I was born in 1987 or whatever it would be.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Kozlowski has a tendency to aid and abet illegal activities, though. I didn't put this on the list, but there's some rally coming up here again where she's getting together and she's going to tell people how to evade ICE. That seems like treason to me. That seems like something that she should be going to jail for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you said, what goes it's not a legal document if you can just go in and change it at any time you feel.
Right.
Wake up one morning and I'm going to change it.
Right. What good is it?
And then we're back to her specialized groups. She has her 3 groups that she's going to take care of, and not everybody. She doesn't represent everybody in the city. She represents her 3 groups.
Yeah. She doesn't even try.
Right.
HF 2591. Yeah, you remember when I told you that the Minnesota legislators have figured out a way to inject themselves into the federal government?
Yeah.
So they keep saying that the federal government's going to cut Medicaid, right? And so they've come up with a 5th tier of individual income tax at a rate sufficient to offset lost federal Medicaid funds. Kozlowski and 34 others, not Pete Johnson, but 34 other, and I'm guessing Democrats have signed up to this bill. So this is to create a tax policy to create a safety net in case the federal government reduces Medicaid support.
Which Trump said 100 times he wasn't going to do.
Right. So it should be a non-issue, right? But still, but the thought is, it says wealthy, where I just lost it, where wealthy Minnesotans will shoulder the burden for this. And I heard Pete Johnson talking about this, and he said, yeah, well, these are the people that aren't worried about the price of eggs, and these are the people that don't have to worry about the cost of goods, so they can shoulder this burden. And his point basically is, well, you have enough money. I've decided you have enough money, so we're just going to take it from you.
Yeah.
And that is the mindset of every criminal that's ever existed on earth. The whole thing is, I can take it from you because you don't need it. I've determined that.
Right.
Why doesn't the Minnesota state legislators stay on Minnesota business and stay out of this stuff? Now, I don't think this is going to pass because it's a tax increase, but they just keep going at it. They just keep more and more and more. And the worst part about the liberals in this state and communism in general, because they're pretty close to communists, is that sooner or later you run out of other people's money to spend, and then you're screwed. Then the people will revolt against you, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, just think of all the billionaires that the state has once had,
right? Because
they were smart enough to leave because they know that the good Democrats are coming after them.
Right.
That famous quote by Billy the Kid. Hey, why do you rob banks? Billy the Kid. Well, that's where the money is.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So these guys are looking at billionaires. Well, that's where the money is. We're just going to go steal their money.
Right. Exactly. Same thing.
Yeah.
I would, and you're right about people. This will make people leave this state Because,
Correct.
we have this high income tax here at Minnesota state income tax. We have high property taxes. Most states pick one or the other. Like you will not have state income taxes if you have a high property tax.
Correct.
Or vice versa. Not Minnesota. We like to double bang that stuff. So that's why people leave for Florida. That's why people leave for Texas or just about any other goddamn state except for California.
Right.
They're crazy. And I was actually had a conversation in one of my forums. We're talking about, I was saying that people were leaving, many millionaires were leaving the state. We were having a migration away from the state. And the guy said, no, we're getting more people. I said, no, yeah, you're right. We're getting more people. What I said was there's wealth leaving the state. People with money are leaving the state. So you're just replacing them with people with no money. It's like trying to get as much low income housing in your city as possible. Well, that doesn't bring in the people that help you out because they don't pay any taxes on it. So all you're doing is basically saying, come to the city and the rest of you are going to have to pay for this until they leave. And then you get destroyed, right?
Yeah.
Motorcycle lane splitting, HF 5427. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, this is more. I read this and I was thinking that this is more of a public service announcement because Walz signed this last year, which I thought was very strange of him. And it starts May 1st of this year. So when you're going slow in traffic, a motorcycle can pass you on the white line. They can basically create another lane.
Right.
So Minnesota drivers have to start looking out for motorcycles driving on the white lines. This can't be done at high speeds, but it can be done. And so that'll start this year. So like I said, it's more of a PSA of Minnesota's not used to it. When I had to go out to California where it's legal, I swear I almost hit a few motorcycles because I wasn't used to it. Right. Now you're going to start, and the American Motorcycle Association thinks it's going to make driving motorcycles safer when it's going to make it worse because people don't know this law. It did get passed. The governor signed it. It starts, I believe, May 1st of this year. So start really looking out for motorcycles passing you on a white line in a slow neighborhood. So
yeah,
I figure we need to throw that one in there since.
But it's not when it's just that you're not driving as fast as they like you to. It's when you come to a stop. Is that right?
Well, yeah, it's mostly when you're in traffic. So if you're stopped at a light or there's a traffic jam, the motorcycles can pass you on the white line. Okay. And it said something in there about under 25 miles an hour, but I have a feeling they're going to take advantage of higher speeds than that.
Under 25 miles an hour? That doesn't seem like enough. It should be like stop and go traffic, huh?
Yeah, but the law says under 25 miles an hour, so that could be, that's basically all city streets. So
right. Yeah. Well.
So
yeah, they're gonna get wiped out.
Yeah, just start looking out for motorcycles because it's a new law that they passed last year. So
right. All right, and we've got last one is HF 3158 constitutional amendment requiring supermajority to fund pro sports stadiums, and it's got a lot of Democratic authors. And to be honest with you, I don't oppose this at all. I don't think we should be buying billionaire stadiums. The Twin Stadium, the Viking Stadium, the U of M Stadium, ridiculous. They're just ridiculous. And remember when this was happening, especially with I think it was the Twin Stadium, right? It had to go to election by law. It went up, got voted down. So what did they do? They voted again. They sent it up for vote, voted down yet again. They came up a third time, said no. So they said, well, we're going to do it anyway. And they just did it.
Right.
Keep having to vote until they vote what you vote. You vote for what we want. So
yeah.
What stops it? Sounds good.
And I have a feeling it's just because of the Minnesota Wild want to upgrade their stadium, which isn't, it's not that old, but this is a way to stop. I think this is a way they're introducing it to stop from giving those billionaires more money. So
these guys make enough money. Look at the football stadium alone. What would they pay these guys? It's not up to us to house all that. It really isn't. And then have a separate. You used to share. What the Metrodome used to be shared for baseball and football, right?
Yeah.
And now they split it off, and they got these Taj Mahal baseball stadium, Taj Mahal football stadium. You got the Target Center. That was another one of those money sinks. And then you got the Xcel Energy Center too. At least that's owned by itself. But yeah, why are we as citizens paying for this? And then having to pay to go to the games. That's even worse.
Just last week they finally sold the Timberwolves to Alex Rodriguez and another one of his cronies for $1.3 billion. I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name who owned the team, but he paid $90 million for it in 92, 93.
$90 million to what? Over $1 billion?
Correct. So he made $1.2 billion on the deal. So
yeah, he's
20 years
swimming in money. We're still paying for it.
Yeah,
it's not worth it, guys. It's not worth it. So I'd be signing on that bill myself.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of wasting money.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Minnesota stuff. I saw a little thing that came out that said DFL and Republican legislatures spoke openly Monday about completely rethinking infrastructure projects and dissolving the Met Council. For people that don't live in the Twin Cities, have never lived down there, the Met Council is an unelected group that is just wreaks havoc on the entire system. They're responsible for a lot of garbage that went on in the Twin Cities last few years. And getting rid of them sounds like a great idea to me.
They've been talking about this for decades.
I hope they do it.
I mean, I really don't know what their main focus is, but they seem to be put in charge of a lot of construction projects that they have zero control over.
Right. It's government gone awry. It's too much government. Let's scale down this government. Let's do a Doge for Minnesota.
Right.
Mode.
Absolutely. Moj. Moj.
Department of Minnesota Fishery. Dome. All right. We can do that. I think we should do that. Let's see. We are going to have a short film. This is good. Democrats trifecta made all of us break the law for their ultimate control. Tell me about this.
So during their trifecta, there's a little law that got passed and signed off on that nobody really even knows about. And it has to do with the sale of certain metals, because the metals are killing us. Just like a 4-year-old who likes to chew on their plastic on a motocross bike, so they need to ban the motocross bikes and all the PFSAs or whatever you want to call them.
Of course, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, they actually did one on metal too that has the same problem. So the keys in your pocket have all this metal attached to them, which are by law part of the illegal components for your health. So a lot of key manufacturers or like locksmiths have been shut down and told to cease and desist making keys for your house, for your car, for everything, for your work. So technically, that's a law that nobody knows about, and they can throw you in jail for basically. A lot of locksmiths are complaining because they, when is the axe going to fall on them? Some of them have gotten the letter already, and some haven't.
So it just hasn't been enforced to everybody yet.
Correct. But if you're carrying around your house keys or your keys for your car, you're technically breaking the law.
Oh my God.
Yes, exactly. So there's just another way that they figured out to throw you in jail, basically.
Right. Fantastic reasoning. I think we just need more and more government helping us out, Dave. They're the best.
Yeah. Yeah. What would we do without them?
Let's see. Let's go. You know, I put this in Minnesota News, so I'm going to move this down because I put it in the wrong place. We'll go on to, oops. Lead prosecutor in the Feeding Our Future case speaks out. And he had a quote, and this is the Feeding Our Future case that they stole $250 million from Minnesota through the Department of Education, who was in control of, was supposed to be controlling this. And $250 million just sent out to addresses that didn't even have buildings on them. And what this lead prosecutor said is, it's like there's a culture of fraud in the state now. When he was asked if indictments for political leaders could still be coming. I would like to see some political leaders face some consequences for this fraud that was perpetuated in our state. And by the way, our governor, Tim Walz, had no interest in looking at until the last election when he didn't have a trifecta. It's the only before that, he just waved his hand and said there's nothing wrong. All right. And that's what they were all saying. Well, so what? What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything. We're in charge. And God bless me, why do people still vote for these morons? Why are people still voting for the people that are in office, right? Not all of them, but there's a lot of people. Start thinking for yourself. Start voting for a person and not a party. Actually figure out if that person's good for you in your state, because that's what your job is. Your job when you vote is to look out for yourself and everybody else. It's supposed to be a community thing. And you know, these people that were part of this fraud still get reelected. It's crazy.
Well, part of this Feeding Our Future is our Attorney General, Keith Ellison, is reported by Alpha News that they've got recordings of him with the two that were just found guilty of defrauding the state. And they agreed to, he agreed to help them with whatever, and they agreed to pay money into his campaign.
Seriously, I did not hear about this.
Yeah, this was on Alpha News. So right now, the heat's coming down on him to find out what was actually done, what he said, what was agreed to, and I mean, obviously nothing's going to happen because he's the Attorney General and the governor just pardoned him, but still, he needs to fess up what happened on that situation and how he was associated with it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, let's tie back to the Met Council. They're being grilled on the Southwest Light Rail. I like talking about light rails. You know why? Because I'm constantly proven right about these things.
Yep.
Met Council's original estimates for the project came out at $36 million. The contracted construction company estimated the same work would be more like $82 million. That kind of cost overruns have led the project to balloon from original $1.3 billion cost to a 2.86 cost, 2.86 billion. That's double. That's over double what they estimated for in billions of dollars. Do you have any concept of what $1 billion is? And that is just wasted, and they're still working on it.
They're not even using it, and it's
just because you can take money from people and do your social programs, you shouldn't. I'm not saying the light rail is a social program, but it's just in the whole mindset. Well, we have the money, we might as well take it. Might as well use it.
Well, yeah, I can't remember if it was in the news. I think it was in the News Tribune today about the rail from the Northern Express from the Twin Cities to Duluth, and they said even it's going to benefit you even though you'll never ride it, is because it's how much traffic it's going to stop. And that was their only reasoning behind the whole thing is the roads will be empty because everyone's going to be taking the train. So that's going to, if you even if you don't, will never take the train, it's a good thing for the state.
Yeah, like, clearly. Jesus.
So I get to pay for the roads and the rail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You get to pay for both, and you only use one.
Right.
I seem to remember the mayor talking about, you know, how many times I take, because he used to be a Minnesota legislator. You know how many times I had to take that trip down 35W? I'd love it if there was. Sure, you would. How many times have you gone down 35W this year, Dave? A dozen?
No, not even that many. Probably three or three.
Yeah. People don't drive every day down to the Twin Cities. It's not going to get nearly the ridership they're talking about. It's not near. It's going to cost way more than they think. Not more than they think. It's going to cost way more than they're saying it's going to cost, and it's an ongoing cost. And then Minneapolis is going to dump all the dregs of their city up here in Duluth.
Right.
I don't think people understand how nice it is to live in a small city. I mean, it's a big, small city. Duluth is a big city, has everything you ever want, but it doesn't have a massive population. And everybody that talks about just, we need housing, we need people in here, no, you're going to ruin it here.
Right.
You're going to change our culture. You're going to change the way this city is. And you're going to hate it too, by the way, because living in a really busy city maybe sound exciting when you're young, but not when you get older. And you know what? There are busy cities. So go move to the Twin Cities if you really want to be around a big place and leave Duluth alone. That's my opinion.
Right.
All right. Minnesota DFL Senate president faces heat over conflict of interest allegations. Senator Bobby Joe Champion. What a great name, Bobby Joe Champion. How could you go wrong with that? What's your name?
Right.
Bobby Joe Champion. Well, okay, you're going to win, I guess. Will temporarily step aside as the chair of the Senate Ethics Committee following revelations that he helped steer millions in state funding to an organization tied to a former legal client. Wait, I've got a face for this. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Freaking corrupt to the core of these politicians. My God.
Yeah, and you read about his defense of it, and it's just clearly, bending the rules of ethics. So
right.
Like the head of the ethics is just trying to find out a way around ethics is what it boils down to.
Yeah, he's in charge of it because he spends a lot of time trying to figure out how to avoid it.
Correct. Yeah.
God. All right. Let's move on to Tim Walz. I don't really have a lot to do to talk about for Tim Walz because I just like to have this segment because I like to point out how much of a great guy he is. So I have this link I'm going to put into the comment section, and it's just got a bunch of points about Tim Walz going out and cheering on the stock market prices going down of an American company. And then when he's called out on it, of course, he turns it around to gaslight people, making it sound like you're the bad guy for pointing this out. You can't take a joke, right?
Yeah.
Apparently he was in one of his town councils here or whatever they call it. And he told the story about his son saying, he told his son something. His son said something like, so says the guy who got his ass kicked by Donald Trump. So a couple things. Your son's actively mocking you. How does that feel? And two, why do you tell us about it? What kind of folksy thing do you think is happening here, Tim? You look weak. That's all. And the same thing, he laments about Elon Musk and Donald Trump being a bully, and he talked about his mom's Social Security payment being late this month. No, I don't think it was. They haven't touched that. They're not touching Social Security. They keep trying to make it, they're baiting people to make it sound like they're cutting all these medical programs that go to the people, especially Social Security. He's never talking about cutting Social Security. Social Security is for everybody. We've paid into it. It's the least of the entitlements. I mean, there's lots of entitlements coming to the government. Social Security is the least of it.
Right.
And then I got one here from MSN.com. It talks about how Tim Walz suffers a blow from ice coming to Minnesota. So,
and it's not the typical winter ice that we normally get around here from
true.
August to July. That's the normal ice we get around here. We're talking the immigration ice.
Also not vanilla ice for people that are confused. It comes up quite a bit. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has suffered a major blow as 5 sheriff's offices have made cooperation agreements with federal immigration authorities. You know what, Tim? Stay out of this. You don't know what you're doing. You are a school teacher. You don't understand stocks. You don't understand security. All you understand is going to places, eating a lot of food, and blowing a lot of hot air, right? So it's good that the ICE has come in and made these deals with these sheriffs. They shouldn't have to make deals with them. It should be your responsibility as an American citizen to protect us. If you find somebody who's here illegally, they should go and come back. That app that Biden had together, right? That one people come into the country with, all of those people have been contacted. First of all, they've been declared illegal here.
Yeah.
And now they're tracking them, right? You've had a tracking device on you for a year now.
Right.
Good job.
I mean, that's the number one job of the federal government, the state government, the city government is safety.
Right.
So we're having a problem with the immigrants being violent and not following our laws. That's our safety. That's the number one thing. Our whoever these sheriffs are that agreed to with ICE made agreements, 100% behind them because they're following the law.
Right. And when Alicia Kozlowski goes to a town hall to tell people how to avoid ICE, she should be arrested on federal charges for aiding and abetting criminals.
Correct.
And go to jail. That is just a hard line. One last thing about Walz. He finally came back to Minnesota to do something. He'd been out on tour all these other states that don't know him. Came back to Minnesota, did something for veterans, and they heckled and booed him. It was glorious.
Yeah.
So he's not getting a lot of love here. I'm hoping that the Minnesota Republicans put together a good candidate for governor next year and kick this guy out to the curb. Because Natalie Zalewski posted something that was chilling that said there is no term limit on governor of the state. So this mess could be here for a while if people don't wake up to see what this laughing stock of the entire nation is and get him out.
So this veterans thing was a true town hall where his fake town halls, he was able to control who came in, the questions asked, and he was able to control everything. The second he can't control it, he gets heckled and mocked and told what a horrible job he's doing.
Right.
And it should show right there. It should show right there he's not competent in that position.
Right. It's like fishing opener. He used to do it with people until they heckled him all the time. Now he does it by himself. Right. All right. We're going to go through national stuff, and I'm going to just skip through some of these things I have on here. I just want to talk about The View a little bit. I know there's people that watch The View. I don't understand why you do it. But these people are not intelligent. I'll just tell you right now, these hosts. So Joy Behar, her idea is that Donald Trump wants to crash the economy so him and his buddies can pick up all this stock real dirt cheap. Joy, Donald Trump is 78 years old. I don't think he's looking out 20 years in his future.
Right.
I think he's got all the money he needs. And if he wants to get stock like that, what he would do is actually join Congress so he can manipulate laws so that he could buy up stock cheaply, just like Nancy Pelosi does.
Correct.
And then you had this other one, the Sonny Holston. Oh, God. Why is she on this show? He's talking about how voter ID and how that affects minorities, which I've heard that argument since I was a kid. Like minorities apparently aren't smart enough or capable enough to get an ID, which if you talk to anybody, they'll say, yeah, I know where to get the ID. I have an ID. Of course I do. Because you need to have an ID to do anything. But apparently it also affects women, not just minorities, but women. Women
really?
Yeah.
Women aren't. So Sonny is saying women aren't smart enough to get an ID?
That's what I'm taking out of it. I don't know why she thinks that, but
Huh.
So I just wanted to take a little shot at The View today because I think that is one of the worst shows about gaslighting. If you look at like Whoopi Goldberg, look at her qualifications before you start taking her opinions seriously, right? And I'm not saying that you take my opinions seriously though, but I'll back it up. Back up if she could back up what she says, fine, listen to her, but she can't. Let's see. 170 lawsuits against the federal government. There's 170 lawsuits against the federal government. I think this is by state attorneys general.
Yeah.
That's a constitutional crisis right there. You've got small-time federal judges overriding what the president of the United States has put into law and effect. That's a problem. I didn't elect that federal judge to do it. I elected Donald Trump to do what he's doing. I'm glad he's doing what he's doing.
Right.
I didn't elect Joe Biden, but when he wanted to do his stuff, he did his stuff. Now, his stuff got nixed because it was unconstitutional, and that was set up into a federal lawsuit. But what Donald Trump's doing is very constitutional. He's invoking laws that have been in effect since the 1700s.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't, Ellison, he's got 20. Minnesota's got at least 20 lawsuits against Trump with other states. Yeah. But I don't remember Ellison doing anything that was when Biden did something unconstitutional.
Mm-mm.
And even like Biden did the student loan repayments or forgiveness, I should say. And that was the Supreme Court said that was against the law, and he kept doing it anyways.
Over and over again, right?
Correct. So he didn't even, the Democrats don't even care what the courts say unless it's in their favor.
Right. And this is the student debt forgiveness for people that now are suddenly experts on tariffs, right?
Right.
They can't navigate their own student loan or figure out they have to repay it, but now they know everything there is to know about tariffs.
Yeah.
Let's see. Speaking of tariffs, we got a little screenshot here I'm going to show of the famous Biden. If I can find it. I just imposed a series of tariffs on goods made in China, 25% on steel and aluminum, 50% on semiconductors, 100% on EVs, and 50% on solar panels. Mm-hmm. Where was the outrage? Right? This was last year.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing all the scholars talking about that being a bad thing.
Well, it's just we're back to the protests again.
Yep.
What are they? They don't even know what they're protesting. They just know that Trump is bad. Therefore, whatever he does, you protest.
Yeah, these guys are itching to protest. They're just looking for a reason.
And they don't even have a reason yet. They're just making it up.
Right.
So that's the part that's really always going to get me is what are they protesting? What's missing in their lives that they need to go out and protest something, something that's good.
Well, something I didn't talk to you about was the makeup of that thing that happened on Saturday. And we talked about this last week. We talked about that, the Start or Duluth News Tribune article where they talked about the people making the signs and it looked like a senior citizens arts and craft show.
Yeah.
This looked like a senior citizens day out. What you're talking about is like people that are 70, 75 plus getting together and just angry. and they're just looking for. They didn't vote for Trump, and they're angry about that he won. So now they're just being organized by the Duluth representatives and other representatives to come out and just bitch about it. That's all they're doing. They don't really have any end goal. They don't know what they want. They just don't like it. I'm angry, so I will protest. That's the whole reason behind it.
It's ridiculous.
Go back to our initial comments where we're talking about bias in the media. And this was just brought up by somebody who said, let's take a look at the two different ways they've had articles in the AP. The white man who pleaded guilty to shooting a black teen who rang a wrong doorbell dies. Notice that white is in lowercase and black is in uppercase. That's not, racist at all. But then they have police say 17-year-old was fatally stabbed by another student at a Texas track meet. I'm not saying it's great to point out that this is a black kid that stabbed a white kid. It doesn't really add to the story. I'm just saying this isn't right either, right? Be consistent.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this week, was that the female fencer who wouldn't, she wouldn't compete against the male trans person at the national meet. And they all the headlines said the woman wouldn't fight the man. Well, why didn't it say USA Fencing Corporation allows a man into the women's division? That's what it should have said, because it was after Trump signed the agreement, or his authority to stop men and women's sports.
Right.
So why wasn't that the headline versus the woman quit?
Right. And I'll tell you what, though. You know what? If this is going to stop, this is what they have to do.
Yeah.
They either have to not compete against these frauds or just gang up on them, one of the two. But something that's in the women's hands. I mean, you want women empowerment? This is it. Nothing a guy can do to help you out on this. You have to take control of this. Right. You have to say this is enough. And they can do it, but they've got to do it, right? Step up. Let's see. There was stories this week about how the FBI squashed every article about Hunter Biden's laptop story, which would have come out before the 2020 election, which they squashed it down so that, and manipulation of the election, so that Biden won the election. And the FBI has no business doing any of that. So that was another thing I saw come out.
Right.
I'm going to show you a little clip of somebody that I just remember we talked about people's soul and their evil, right? And when they just don't have it anymore, they just seem completely just unhinged what was happening in the world right now.
Right.
And I'm going to show this screen. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to play a little bit, but this guy at the beginning, he really, man.
To the criminal charge of rape. He is credibly alleged of having raped a 14-year-old girl. Is that what you want for your president?
Absolutely not.
Right? No,
Yeah, which one are you guys talking about?
I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
You're good, my friend. You're good.
I was talking about our alleged president, our fascist, Nazified, idiot, moronic.
The Mango Menace?
Break our NATO alliance, turn our allies against us, steal our money, throw 71 million people off Medicaid that people depend on. 71 million people.
Ooh. Wear your MAGA hat to a rally sometime.
Yeah.
See how that goes. Wow. Yeah. 71 million people off Medicaid, Dave.
Wow, that's more than voted for Biden. So
That's amazing, though. We're going to throw that many people. That's what he's been talking about, right? That's the whole thing. I want to get rid of Medicaid.
yeah, since Trump said it 100 times, he's not touching it. But
Right.
and he hasn't touched it.
If you're a liberal, I don't expect you to say, I expect you to say, you know what, that guy doesn't represent me. But there's way too many of those guys on your side. And maybe it's time to take a look in the mirror and say, am I on the right side? Am I really thinking these things through? Because I do this a lot and we talk about it. I like to step back and say, am I wrong all the time on an issue? And I'll come back and try to figure out how did I get here and start. That's just the logical mind, right? Okay, what if I am wrong? What if this is not what they're saying? What if this is, and I haven't always done it, but almost always I come back to my original position. But you got to do that every once in a while and say, what am I, crazy? This many people opposing you so violently. What's their grand? What are they doing? What is that? What is the basis of what they're saying? And all I can do is look at it, and for a lot of it, I just see it as being emotional manipulation, as opposed to actual logic and reasoning. So that guy was scary to me, though, man. That was oof.
And that's why you can't just take you obviously can't take the media's word for anything. You need to research it.
Yeah.
Just like you said, find out the truth about it. Here's the beginning of the story. Well, then let's find out the next step of the story and keep working our way until we get both sides of the story. What's the pros, what's the cons, and then make a decision from there. Once we know that both sides of the truth.
Right.
But this guy, he's just a nut job.
Right.
And he's been eating false information because obviously 71 million aren't on Medicaid. They're not, and Trump said 100 times he's not touching Medicaid, Social Security, or Medicare.
But that guy didn't get agitated by himself like that.
Right.
He's got people like our city and Minnesota representatives feeding into him. I go to these rallies. They're talking about how we're going to kick ass. They're doing all the rally stuff and come to this thing later on. We're going to resist. That's what's feeding into these people that aren't that mentally stable. Instead of trying to help people understand what the facts are and trying to work with it, their whole thing is we're going to fight it until we're back in control, and then we're going to do what we want to do. Right.
Well, I also noticed that Walz hasn't agreed to any fights with Republicans that he said he could kick everyone's ass. I mean, there was a mayor down in, I think, Georgia or something that agreed. Tyrus from Fox agreed to do a charity thing.
I would love to see that. That would be the best. Tyrus just take his arm and put it on top of Walz, and he'd go down like a sack of crap.
Well, yeah, but the mayor is 7'1", 360. Woo. So he would whoop Tyrus probably. So
yeah, right. Hey, don't forget that Tim Walz knows how to fix a truck. He's a pretty manly man.
Yeah.
I think you're just scared of his manliness like I am. We're going to jam through a couple more of these things. There's a talk about a Christian NATO. And I had this up and then I'm not seeing it here. Viktor Orban will be creating a Christian NATO alliance. It aims to preserve Christianity in Europe and protect Christians across the world. So that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Border corruption. This is a story that talks about Border Patrol agents, I believe, were selling access. Let me just bring it up here. Taking bribes to wave in illegal immigrants. So that's treason, and I think that should be punished as such.
Yeah, I think he did get arrested, though. So
arrested's not enough. That is his job to keep people out, and he's taking bribes. Just like I think punishment should be greater for policemen who actually do real corrupt crimes.
Right.
stuff that happens on the street. I'm talking about embezzlement and stuff, or priests that do things that are illegal, like molesting kids. I think their punishment should be harsher. That's what I think. They're put in a position of authority and respect, and then they abuse that. There should be a bigger punishment to make people in the future not do it.
Right.
James Carville. You know who this is?
Yeah, he is a failed human being. Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can describe him, but that's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
He looks like, if you ever watch Lord of the Rings, he looks like Schmeagol.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, I'll get this window up so you can see him. So this guy, oh, there's Bezos. They kind of look alike, actually. This is James Carville. He's a redneck if I were someone, but he said that if you're a law firm and you're working with the Trump administration, we used to do things like, at the Nuremberg trials, we used to hunt you people down and basically kill you. So what he's saying is he's warning law firms not to work with the Trump administration because you'll be found guilty of something after this administration's over.
Right.
He's psychotic. I mean, he is really off the edge. I don't know why he ever gave it apart. Again, another one of these people. How did you ever get elected in office? Never could figure it out.
Right.
Let's see. I'm going to talk about that. Green execs vandalizing electric cars. So green energy executives were arrested for vandalizing several electric cars. Well,
I did, yeah, but
yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Another Alpha News article that major backer of green energy admits solar and wind power alone can't reliably keep the lights on. Although this was very obvious.
Yeah.
I was saying this last year on the campaign trail, but yeah, you got to have many sources of electricity. You can't just rely on one because that one source of electricity can fail. Everyone can. If you got coal-powered electricity, you run out of coal, you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
Nuclear reactor, you have an issue with it, it goes down. You can't produce energy out of it. Lots of different sources of energy is good.
And that's what Minnesota Power wants to do over in Superior by Canavivus Energy. They want to put basically a backup to their wind and solar. And the city of Superior originally agreed to it, and then now they're backing out of it.
Perfect.
So even Minnesota Power understands that the wind and the solar that they want can't handle it, won't be able to handle it. They need a backup. And then all of a sudden the city of Superior is saying, no, that's okay. We'll freeze to death in the dark. That's fine.
Yeah, we're fine.
Yeah.
Here's a good one as we're banging through these. Two men will face each other for the women's championship title at the Ultimate Pool Women's Pro Series Event 2 tonight. So are we getting rid of women's sports then? Why do we have separate? Everybody should just try out for the same team and the best people will win. They'll be on the team.
Right.
Why do we have a distinction for what a women's and men? If you're going to allow men into these sports, you've just diluted it to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. I thought that was pretty funny that two guys are going to go out for the women's championship.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats 50 years ago fought hard as they could to get Title IX in,
right,
to make women's sports fair. And now they're doing everything they can to get rid of women's sports.
Yeah. Justify that. I don't know how you can.
Right. Yeah, it's not possible.
Here's an interesting tweet I'll put up. Put the right one. During Joe Biden's administration, U.S. born Americans gained 0 net jobs in 4 years. All job gains were foreign workers. And I read this, and it's true. It was all foreign workers that were in jobs. So it doesn't do us any good to create jobs if we're the ones that don't get to have the jobs. And again, this isn't a welfare country. We're not here to provide for everybody else in the world. We're here to provide for ourselves. If we stay competitive and assume that the other countries will try to be competitive and look out for themselves, everything will work just fine. It's when you try to suck off us the whole time, it's just not going to end well for all of us. Nike says they will not build factories in the U.S. because they don't need the U.S. market. Well, that's good. The U.S. market hasn't needed them for a while, so hopefully they can just go away. They were a good shoe in the 80s. After that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand how they have good marketing. That's about it. But their products are really no better than anybody else nowadays. So
no. New Balance has got a good shoe.
Yeah, and I think Nike. I think we're only like 10% of their market. So
yeah, oh yeah. Their point is they don't need the U.S. market because they make their money elsewhere. So okay, fine.
That's fine.
Yeah. In fact, less business to the United States may be better for you. So go away.
Yeah, just make sure the CEO is not in this country anymore either. So
I got another one here. AOC flies first class to Bernie Sanders' Fight Oligarchy rally. So it's one of these first class things too. It's like the all encompassing, you sit down in the thing and you can just lie flat and it's like very pampered. And somebody wrote, "We're fighting inequality one mimosa at a time." Bernie Sanders, who has now I've heard 4 mentions. I thought he only had 3. Who literally got kicked out of the communist commune because he was too lazy.
Yeah.
Is fighting against billionaires. I don't know why people buy into his grift anymore. Wasn't he shown to be pretty much a fake when he bowed out to Hillary and just sits in this job and says the same things and just gets elected time after time? It's crazy.
Yeah, because he's another Tim Walz who's never had a public sector job, or he's always been.
He never had a job, not a job.
He's always been a government hack, basically.
Yeah, a lifelong government hack, and now he's a multimillionaire from working for a job that makes you what, $174,000 a year now.
No, yeah,
you can't accumulate that kind of wealth. You can't, not in that job. I suppose when you sell your soul, it gets easier though.
Yeah, makes life easier. Yeah.
I got one more here. U.S. Representative Brittany Peterson. So she brings her baby to the House floor, and because she wants to work remotely because she has a baby, and she actually says, these rules were set up by old white men. It had to be white guys, I guess. So. Right. Old white men that, it wasn't a modern look at our society and stuff. And somebody points out, the House of Representative Child Care Center is a federal child care center on federal property, providing full day, year-round care. So she can't drop her kid off to daycare reliably and do her job. She has to bring her kid to work. What other job does she think she should bring her baby to? I wonder how many nurses can bring their babies to work.
Right.
Or teachers.
School teachers. Yeah, teachers.
Or anybody. And I had 2 kids. And when they were babies, first of all, my wife, we put them in daycare. My wife worked. And then she stayed home. And one of us stayed home. And I went to work. I took the sacrifice to not be with the kids so that we could have a place where their mom could be with them. And it's not that hard, lady. If you can't do the job, don't sign up for the job. She knew what was involved when she signed up to be a representative. If you can't do that job, just don't do it. And it is set up for older people. If you're still in baby generating age, maybe you shouldn't be in that. I never hear about Vance complaining about not having, I can't bring my kids to to the ready room. What the heck? You know, he brings his kids to some things and then doesn't bring them to others. But I've never heard a complaint about it. It's just nuts.
Right.
You know, get elected and then try to change everything to suit your own needs. My goodness.
Yeah, there was a story in, let's see, I thought it was, it was the Star Tribune, I believe, that they did a story about the legislature trying to cap childcare in Minnesota to 7% of your income. So basically, you know,
How are they going to fund that?
well, it's hard to say nowadays. I mean, because there's no money to spend, and the Republicans won't. They already said straight out, we're not raising taxes. So I don't know how it's going to happen. So
It's not up to the government to figure this out. This isn't your job.
yeah, it's not the job of government to pay for, you know, if you want to have 10 kids and
Correct.
be on welfare.
It's also not the job of the government to pay for your food or your housing
Right.
at all. I mean, those are just benefits. Those should be charity work. That should be through the church or the nonprofits. Government
Right.
shouldn't be having opinions on that. And as soon as they dip their fingers into doing that, that's when all these problems start. Because then they get their little thing in there. And then they're like, yeah, well, we're going to do it like this. And now I'm going to kind of massage it so it does this for us. And, you know, get them all these social program stuff going on. It's not the job of the government. The job of the government's to take care of the roads and the safety, make sure that the robbers aren't out there and they're getting punished if they are. If the house burns down, the fire department should show up. That's the job of the government.
Correct.
Not to figure out how to make sure that we have homeless camps somewhere.
Well, it really boils down to is that's how they're trying to manipulate people and buy their votes.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can go in their campaign and say, well, you're not working and you have 8 kids with, you know, 15 fathers. So you know, the DFL helps you out.
Wait, 8 kids and 15 fathers? That's crazy.
That's just crazy talk. But you know, that's the DFL for you. And like, I think that guy that you showed out earlier, I think he believes that.
That could be.
Yeah, I think I heard it from him.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
They're just basically buying votes. So,
well, yeah, I mean, they set up the program so they can manipulate it, and then they can't cut off funding to it, and then they just need another program. It's just that's the way you spend people's money until the point where they chewed up all through your money and there is none anymore. And then you've got this horrible system where people are working 2-3 jobs to be able to pay their food so other people can go around and not pay anything and get taken care of better than they are.
I did find it. That was actually a Duluth News Tribune article. So go to the News Tribune to get specifics on that. But it's still the DFL buying vote.
Yeah.
And they think if we feed you money, then you owe us. That's kind of their thought process.
All right, let's end it here on health and fitness. This has been what I would like to call a poor week for me because I've been sick. So I started getting sick on Saturday. I was out basically on my back Sunday and Monday, and I'm slowly getting better now. That I haven't had a coughing fit is incredible to me right now.
We're in other rooms.
How'd you do?
I got all my days in, and then the days I couldn't make it to the gym, I was very busy all day moving. So I had a pretty good week. I'm paying for it now. I'm really sore. I'm tired, and so.
Well, one other thing I wanted to talk about on this subject before we take off is you're going to try to highlight different little things about health. And one of them I want to talk about today is titanium dioxide, which is in a lot of food products, and it whitens or enhances colors, but it is banned in the EU, and it's something you got to look out for. I would say it's one of the things that makes me not have certain toothpastes. I won't eat Skittles, although I didn't really like Skittles to begin with. Skittles has it. there are some medications. The problem is that it can be in a lot of things. It can be in milk, coffee creamer, salad dressing, candy and sweets, chocolate, chewing gum, snacks, sauces, and vitamin supplements. The European Commission banned it as a food additive in the European Union in 2022. Unfortunately, they don't have to put that it's in it as an ingredient. They could call it artificial colors, artificial color added, or color added inside of ingredients, and you won't know that it's in there. But apparently it's a carcinogen. It could cause cancer. It's something to look out for. So if you're looking through your ingredients of stuff you're trying to eat and titanium dioxide comes in it, maybe you want to pass that up.
Yeah.
Up to you. Do your research. Figure it out. Just like everything else on this show, we're not the hard and fast experts on it. Do your research. Do it yourself. We're just here to maybe, hopefully, give people a reason to look up something they didn't know about before. Maybe it's something that they hadn't heard about before, and now they should research it, or just understand where a point of view is coming from. So, any final thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, it kind of brings up a bill that our Duluth News Tribune endorsed. Alicia Klazowski introduced a couple years ago. It didn't make it through, thank goodness. But she wanted it to make it a law that food manufacturers could put animals like bugs and into the food, but then not disclose it on their ingredients list.
Who's that looking up?
Yeah. Yeah. What good is that? So you can fill your food with bugs because it has proteins, but you're not going to list it. You know,
get the idea that maybe there's some of these bills are going in that maybe they don't even know what the first thing is of them.
Yeah, you wonder if their aides are just putting them in and signing their name off, you know, kind of like Biden in the auto pen.
Oh, God. That's a
Right.
whole other story.
Yeah, exactly.
And if people can't see that for what it is, Jesus. All right. Well, let's sign off for tonight. I got out of this without coughing my fool head off, so that's good.
Get some rest.
All right. Well, we'll be here next week we don't want to disappoint our tens of fans. We will be here to talk about the issues. If you have something you want to hear talked about, please send us some information on it. Like and subscribe if you can, if you like what you hear. We're here for suggestions. We're not considered experts on this stuff. We will admit when we're wrong. If you think you can send us stuff that will change our minds, more power to you. Send it to me. I'll read it. Otherwise, we'll sign off. We'll see you next week. I'm Shawn.
I'm Dave.
And this was the Duluth Conservative.